Welcome to the NYREJ Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. Today's guest is Kevin Deabler, and he's with NYREJ Architects. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Rick. Nice to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you on. So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about your journey to get where you are today.
Sure. I think the purpose here, I'll make sure we cover how NYREJ Architects started. Really began as a venture that my fellow college classmate Eric Robinson and I, when we had each moved from North Carolina after studying at North Carolina State, we moved up to Boston at different times. We each ended up on the same street in Dorchester. And right about the time we were, say like early to mid career, we said, why don't we explore how to start a firm? And we started doing some work on the side, and we really kind of enjoyed that, bringing that friendship to a professional level. And that was really part of our roots, was starting our work in Dorchester and trying to do really good design in the neighborhood that we lived in. And that was in the sort of like 06 to 08 timeframe. And starting at that time was very difficult from an economic standpoint and all the issues with the recession. But I think that was sort of lean beginnings, taught us a lot of how to, run a lean business. Eventually, we started moving into an office space in the South End and hired our first employee was Ben Wan, who's now a principal at the firm. And our growth really kind of took off after bringing Ben on, and another key initial hire was Jess Haley, and she's also a principal, and she helped us really start focusing on hospitality and interior design. And add that really kind of interesting and fun subset of our work. And we've seen that grow really exponentially since then. Those, really, I think that's the sort of beginnings of our chemistry as a firm, is that sort of collaborative spirit with different folks wanting to join for different reasons. Now we're up to about 40 people. In the South End. Our office space has kept growing on that footprint there on Albany Street, and we have just enjoyed starting a firm and being an emerging company in Boston's sort of history of the last 10-15 years. Has been really exciting to be a part of that process.
I love that story. First of all, you're doing the work in the neighborhoods that you originally grew up in.
Yeah.
Or lived in, which I think that's great. You don't hear that much of that anymore.
Well, I think it is actually out there. There are more people that want to do things in their own community, and I believe that since we sort of moved and into that neighborhood, I think our goal was to just be a part of the community, and I think that's just how we approached our work, is really wanting to make sure that we provide the best projects for our neighbors, and I can tell you it comes with a lot of difficulties, because you go and get a cup of coffee and someone was like, that thing looks too big, like, why did you do that? And the fact that we work in the public realm is a challenge to that. But I guess at this point, I don't have any other choice but to sort of accept it, and actually it's not just a marketing shtick. It really is who we are. We're kind of just regular people raising our families and these communities. So we try to live that, and I think that's why a lot of people have joined our team, because I think that the options and working for firms and doing work, you can do some great things, but it may not be in your backyard. So I think that we really try to mix that up, like really do things that are almost like personally motivated, by the members of the team, and that just comes in all forms, all different types of projects that we do.
Now, Kevin, let me ask you about how you can make come up with your designs that are conforming to the neighborhoods with a new contemporary look.
Hmm.
Because that's something that we're seeing, like I remember when they built that Jenga looking building.
Oh, okay.
There were so many people that were upset and I grew up in the Boston area.
Yeah.
And so there were so many people that saw that building and said, well, this doesn't fit into our city at all. So I can
Yeah.
imagine that's probably not an easy task to do.
It's not. I suppose you're talking about the Data Sciences Center in BU.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Because there's probably a few Jenga buildings,
Yeah.
and Jenga is a thing,
Yeah.
It's a form. It's something that people can relate to. I I think it's like in the it's just part of why Boston's interesting, and that is one of those things that, going even back to my history. Before I moved to North Carolina, we lived in New Hampshire, and I always come to Boston, and you see and the history, and you go to the Back Bay or you go to Beacon Hill and you see the brick, and you're like, some part of your brain says that's what buildings should look like. But then you see the Hancock Tower, and that's been there for a long time, and wow, somehow it fits in. And you can't think of Boston's skyline without that building. But there were people at the time who were like, "What is that thing?" Now, the glass is falling on top of me. That's a different subject for another interview. But I think that's what's so cool about Boston is its rich history and an ability to um, play off of those kind of like really deeply embedded ideas that people have about their neighborhoods. And we just try to, follow some key rules about materials and proportions, and what looks and feels right. We build models at our office, which is a pretty unusual thing. People use their hands to sort of form the buildings, and I guess I'll just point to these buildings in West Roxbury, where some of it was formed because we sanded blocks down on a sander, and they really, people get in touch with the sort of form. So we really do concentrate on form and its connection to people, and what they see when they walk by something every single day. And that is, to us, a big challenge we take seriously. So.
Well, I think a lot of the newer construction, it looks, well, new designs, I should say, look a lot cleaner for our area. And Boston is known for being a clean city.
Yeah. Yep.
So putting into this, the designs like the one you see behind you, that's a nice clean look where
Well, thank
neighbors
you.
probably would like that.
I think that we do know we're building in today's time, so we want to strip back these things that make people try to follow rules, and just maybe don't really think about the real form of a building and its impact on the street and on the occupants who live inside them. But people want big, well lit interior spaces that are comfortable to live in, but they also don't mind making a bit of a statement. But we are still in Boston, and you have neighbors that you need to respect. And I gotta get this menu out of my face, but I think we do appreciate that challenge again of like, people come with really set in opinions, but there's also conversation we try to have, and we try to be very present during community meetings. We don't shy away from conversations or hearing the feedback right to our faces. So it I think a lot of our work kind of just is formed out of this process, and the word process is important to how we work.
Yeah, I have a client that is building a multifamily project in Hull, Mass. And they have a lot of buildings that are run down there, and this is right along the beach. And one of the things that the town wanted is they didn't want to lose that walkability or the green space. They wanted all that included when they were building this structure.
Was it a house or
No,
a?
that's a multifamily project.
Okay.
It's I don't know, 100 and something apartments.
Yeah.
But uh, they had to go back like three times with three different designs. Is that something common that you find?
Well, yes. Depending on the reasons why you had to go back. I mean, did they tell you to just start all over and pull out a new piece of paper and do that? But I think that we know that there will be some conversations. If you're we're just in an age right now where density is very important, and we can't build enough housing to satisfy the demand, you know. So there's this pressure that we feel as architects and trying to serve our clients that, you know, we need to achieve these goals. And we're not afraid of something that might sound aggressive to someone, but we want to have a conversation about it. Say, is there a way through this? And usually, as you mentioned, it is with respect to adding something that the public gets. Sometimes it's no more than like widening the sidewalk by 2 feet, but that can start to challenge some types of buildings and some folks who aren't ready to, you know, kind of get into that conversation, you know. Um,
Well, now there's another challenge that I think a lot of architects, engineers, and construction companies are finding is everything you have to focus more on the sustainability of the property. And that is something that what I've read about your company is that you are focusing on that.
well, we have focused on it, and I don't know that we even knew we were focusing on it because when Eric and I went to college at NC State, our first our program was formed around environmental design and learning passive ways before it's now called passive house, and talked about it with this sort of like Passive House Institute. But in the um, 90s or even well before that, you know, we were taught about how just the sun moves around the earth and that you can orient your buildings a certain way to make them um, better performing just without having to add machinery or electronics or anything digital or that sort of thing. Um, so we've always kind of had that in the way we kind of approach things. We just didn't expect that we would maybe see it as such a critical issue now in our society and looking ahead at trying to build better and build more efficiently. But I think that those ground rules always have guided a lot of different architecture schools, and architects have been knowing this is a thing. The built environment is one of the largest contributors to, you know, carbon emissions. It takes up about 42% of all global carbon emissions. So now it's starting to set in on people that you can, well, you know, not a political statement, but if climate change is real, and we believe it's real, taking some action in everything we do is important. And these West Roxbury Brucewood Homes projects were something we got into well over 5 years ago, to sort of take on this challenge of building a passive house. And we learned so much about the science of building. Science is a big thing. It's a growing, you know, knowledge center that we're trying to learn as much about, train ourselves, become fluent in the energy modeling that you need to do before you know, get a permit and design your building. So we're we've been at it for a while. I can only say, and then the little bit of the recognition that we got for putting the first passive house online in the city of Boston. Now we're talking to folks all over the country, thanks to the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts and its, you know, for forethought on renewable energy and cleaning up the grid and reducing energy, we have actually a group of professionals that are pretty special around the country. So
So
hooray
when you're
for
making the design,
Massachusetts.
does the design change that much when you have to implement the sustainability portion of it?
I think if you compare the sort of base standard, and I could say, let's just call it the base standard for the United States. Passive house standard is higher because of its insistence on testing during construction. Um, I think that if you're, use an analogy of, you're going to hire a plumber to do the plumbing in your house, he's going to do all the pipes and then caps them, and then he runs the water to test to make sure that no water is spurting out of the joints and things like that. That's how a plumber works, and we don't question those methods, that those are sound. But like when you're building a sealed envelope around a house, why don't you do a pressure test on its envelope to make sure that there's no holes and you're not going to be spitting moisture through the walls or through the wall assembly. I think that's the principle behind it. So yes, it is a lot different than that standard that's here. But I think once you just agree to, I'm going to try it on my next project as a builder, a developer, you're learning how to build better and how to be a better plumber, and it's really changing and making sure that you're using that standard and using the science that says that a successful building and sustainable building is a well-insulated, air-sealed environment, Um,
So when I see these buildings that have been uh, focused on sustainability, I also see them looking like a much cleaner look. Is that part of that design?
yeah. I mean, I would say this is going to be the Kevin Deabler, the architecture critic, coming out of here. And like, I think that But hopefully when you say clean, you mean it positively. We've
I
seen
do.
that some of the early stages of these super efficient buildings have been a little boxy and a little not so much like inspiring, but I think that I'd like to say that in Massachusetts, the design and certainly the work that we're trying to do would appeal to that a little bit more simpler aesthetic, that the moves are not challenging to you. They just kind of like speak to you from a formal standpoint. So in back in the day, we would have called it eco bling, and there would be like big things hanging off of a building and solar panels in your face, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a green building. But now it's a lot more subtle, and we're probably a couple, at least a generation into this, in Boston to be able to sort of adopt these really sustainable things into our design easily.
So when you're so now you're doing these new designs with the sustainability, are the costs rising to do it that way, or is it becoming a little less expensive?
Well, I could, um, it is becoming more accepted as a fact of our cost of construction here is very high, no matter what kind of building you're doing.
Right.
That shouldn't deter you from trying to do the right thing. I think that the reasons the costs might be higher on a passive house is that a lot of people are still learning it. So you learn by some mistakes, and there's many different ways to do things in construction. And we're learning how to detail better, to detail cleaner and simpler and more efficiently. So I think that there's probably a little bit of like, I better account for some extra costs here. But I know that builders understand that the codes have changed. It's not even a choice for us right now. We have to abide by the codes here in Massachusetts, and that is something that the rest of the country is catching up to and seeing that, well, maybe there's these benefits that aren't just, a political statement. So,
Well, I think I have to rephrase the question. because
Okay.
the when I say the cost in the long run is the savings of doing that as a sustainable building is that has to be a much less cost to operate that
Oh, yes. I
property.
mean, again, we know that if you build with this passive house mindset and standard, your operating costs will really diminish and down to, I'm not going to say pocket change on an ongoing basis, but electricity in Massachusetts is the highest in the country. So you can make that argument for people and they can get it right off the bat. Other parts of the country, those costs are starting to rise. I think you'll start to see people doing the math a little bit more. And I think we also don't really know what's going to happen in the future. I hate to put it, like a chicken, whatever you call it. The sky is falling cliche, but AI, everyone wants to do everything, wants AI to just take it over and take your job, Rick, and mine and everything else. And that's fine, I suppose, but you're going to need power for that. So the costs are going to be challenged in the future no matter how efficiently we build or retrofit, the costs of electricity are going to rise. So I think you're going to look back at the cost of construction that you penciled out in 2024, and be pretty happy with the fact that you were ahead of the curve in doing this.
Well, I can tell you that AI is not taking my job. No one wants my job. I've been trying to give it away to everyone.
No computer? You haven't
No
shaken
one will
hands
take
with
it.
a
Not even AI.
robot?
It's
Do you know if are you a robot or not? Or anything?
I did an interview with a law firm yesterday, and they implemented AI, and it's part of their whole process with their clients that making out contracts and designing them just for specific clients. Whatever, the whole thing is foreign to me. But I said, well, no, that sounds like it's going to eliminate your job as an attorney. And they said, no, we're not worried about that because someone has to check what they put out,
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sure that it's not, taking over the world and doing what they want to do instead of what the clients want to do.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. Again, like building models with our hands, but we don't want to lose that. We do have 3D printers and that really speeds up things, but um, you know, it's still humans are experiencing space and they live in cities. Um, and there's some parts of it that are exciting to adopt and be part of and make some some tasks a little bit easier, but I do feel like I always try to take a little bit of caution with how much of it we're really adopting. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I once was at a Japanese restaurant in Florida, and they take your order, and they have a robot that brings out the food. And the robot comes up to the table and has a slot with all the trays of the different meals in it, and you just pull them out. I said, well, that didn't eliminate the waitress or the waiter. It
right.
just the server, which is usually the waiter or waitress. Now that person can deal with more tables. So AI, in the same sense, will streamline some process for certain companies, certain
Yeah.
industries, but it's not going to eliminate the job. Or
Hopefully
maybe
not.
not
And
all the jobs.
no, and I feel like our needs are so simple. I suppose as humans, it's just like eating and breathing and that I there are so many people in the world right now and that need so many things that the some old world methods of making things and putting them together are going to solve a lot of problems and we have to make sure that we kind of stay in touch with that sort of aspect of how we put things together. um, and realize that these machines take so much energy to run and to compute, and you're taking resources away from the earth to build them, um, while there are parts of just maybe we should just go back to farming and stay away from the machines, and I would hope that there's a way that we can kind of coexist in that sense of just trying to stay rooted and grounded, but use the technology to our greatest advantage.
See, it's an architect's thinking that is uh, that is changing the way. Like I'm thinking, oh, this could take over everything, and the way you're thinking is that we can't use like the that all the energy, the resources that we use for, that to make these
Yeah,
robots work and these and AI work and all that. That uses up a lot of our resources.
it does, and I don't know. Try to stay on top of what I can and sort of like business trends and things like that. And I just am hearing more and more just about but physical, natural resources you need to build batteries and chips. And um, we have hope that like their buildings will be more efficient when we build them in the future, but they're still kind of like, we need energy to live and to survive. And these all this new technology takes a lot of toil on natural resources. So I think we just, we hope that you just don't lose touch with again the process of making, and that we don't hand it all over to you know this theory.
Right. But
Um,
that's I'm kind of impressed of that thinking that you have because and I'm not sure it everyone else that's in the as an architect or an engineer, they have the same kind of thinking, but that's the kind of thinking I think we need to be better in the future, more efficient, use
well,
less of our resources, or
yeah.
use them in a better way.
Well, just this process of when we did have a little hate to say it, but the Wall Street Journal did an article on these homes, and we're really happy to know that there are people that were looking for this science. But if since been meeting a lot of different people, and that are taking climate change very seriously. And when you look at carbon footprint of any activity, and you can sort of look at it and see how much energy is it taking to run a McDonald's, or to produce a piece of plywood. There is a cost. There's a carbon cost to that, and there are some very smart people, very innovative, trying to make sure that the um, other problems that exist in the world, like poverty and racism and neglect and systemic issues, have a lot to do with the impact on the environment. And it's always felt by the world's poorest and the places where we need the natural resources the most. So I think it's just become more and more clear to me, and I think to a lot in our firm, that trying to get some things to circulate that are more equitable, and building with our hands, and using rapidly renewable materials. There are really good ways to sort of repair some of the harms that we've done, um, while using a real kind of like value generating mindset, that you can start businesses that will become valuable, that have to do with rapidly renewable materials. So I know that there's a lot of investment in those things. It just is going to take a lot of head scratching is going to come out of some of these products that we use, like straw, and really simple things. But I'm excited about where it's going.
Well, I'm excited about hearing what you're doing, and I'm excited about how you're thinking because that your thinking is for the future. And I'm not sure how many companies out there they have that kind of thinking. It's all about how much money we're going to make. I don't
Yeah,
care what the cost is or how much we have, how much we save on something. That's the bottom line is the dollar. You know, and
which
the way you're thinking, it's not so much about the dollar. It's more about how you're going to create something that is going to be better for our future and our children.
yeah, again, I've kind of learned a lot about the process of taking on a challenge, a thing that's new to you is always a difficult thing. But I believe if we do look at every building as an opportunity, many of our clients are developers, so we do not lose sight of the fact that these are driven by pro formas, and I think we're just excited because we're finding more people in the market that are demanding this type of thing, so that we're actually serving that need, a double bottom line, if you will. Um, but we also want to make sure that everything we do is a little bit unique and there's something to be learned on each one. I don't want to say we make tons of mistakes on our projects, but I think we challenge ourselves enough that the next project will be even better because we've learned something, you know.
I I saw some of the projects that you have designed, and one project stood out is the FW Webb building on, I think it's
Mhm.
on the corner of
Melnia Cass.
Molina Cass, and yeah,
Mhm.
because I remember my son was with a developer, and he was in the process of getting unloading that property.
Mm,
They were trying to assemble a few different properties
yeah,
to make that deal happen, and he used to go down there, and that place was a disaster. The buildings were broken down,
that is, yeah. That
and, and what you turned it into, it's beautiful. I went by that the other day. It was gorgeous.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity that Webb gave us on that property. Um, and it has a lot to do with collaborating with the Newmarket Business Improvement District. They and the new zoning that's in place in the Newmarket area, and it's tough there. Melnia Cass is close to the epicenter of our crisis, and I think that I'm just thrilled that there is a new building there and that they took up that opportunity to assemble those lots, move it around, shift it around, and it's exactly what we are trying to do, especially with industrial buildings in the neighborhoods that are encroaching on residential buildings, but they don't have to just be ugly anymore. They can be beautiful buildings, and we have more planned for Hampden Street, and the rest of Newmarket's really exciting as a district and a city. Really, some unusual challenges there, but we feel that design has a place to sort of really, has a role to play in making it better and to make people's lives better in that area.
Well, I can't say enough about how that building cleaned up that area. It does look great, and you did a great job.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Kevin, and I
Thank you,
I,
Rick.
I love what you're doing. I'm
Thank you.
really impressed by it, and I hope everyone listening is also impressed by what Rhodey Architects is doing. And you know, I, every time I hear, I'm an older guy, and so every
No
time when I
way.
hear when I hear younger people trying to do things that will benefit our children in the future, that makes me happy, because
Um,
I think there was a lot of that has been lost in years past. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. We work really hard at what we do, and it's actually not easy being an architect. Like you work and you gain an inch every day, you a quarter of an inch, or you kind of like work really hard at these things. Don't just happen overnight. So I appreciate you saying that. A lot of the respect should go to the team that puts this together, but we are committed to doing something a little different, a little bit better than before. And I don't think you're old, but I really enjoyed this conversation, and it was a lot of fun, buddy. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that because, like you said at the beginning, you like to have fun, and I'm sure the
Right.
people that work for you, they probably love to have fun as well. And
We
it
try
makes
hard.
it makes it enjoyable for them to come into work every day. I'm sure.
That is true. We wanted that when Eric and I started a firm, because like I said, it's a hard profession, but no reason why it can't be fun. So
Well, I love that theory as well because I
I
love
can tell.
fun. I love fun.
Well, you should come by the office someday.
I will. I'll take you up on that one of these
All right.
days. And again, we're talking with Kevin Deabler, and he was with NYREJ Architects. And you know, I can't say enough of what you're doing, and I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best in the future.
You as well, Rick.
Thank you. And you're listening to the NYREJ podcast, and I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. And until next time.